Dealers. Could there be untapped revenue on your lot? Protective Asset Protection works with dealers to unlock new revenue streams through reliable protection products across most vehicle types. Visit protectiveassetprotection.com/automotive news to learn more.
Welcome to this bonus episode of Daily Drive. I'm executive producer Jake Neer in Detroit. Today, we're going to talk about a story that we didn't get to during the week, but is very, very interesting. It's about Nissan's incentive spending, which is up 14%, while the rest of the industry is pulling back. Our own Urvaksh Karkari has been reporting on it, and he joins me now to talk about it. Urvaksh, welcome back to Daily Drive.
Hi, Jake. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Nissan incentive spending up 14%, really bucking the trend in the industry. Is that a sign of strength or is that a warning sign for Nissan?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. Nissan has been on a bit of a sales streak, a retail sales streak. They've been seeing consecutive retail sales gains, and they've been the fastest growing brand in terms of retail sales for several months now. And it turns out that some of that momentum is coming at a cost. To drive these sales, to drive retail growth, they're also spending significantly on investments, on incentives, more than some of their key competitors. So, for example, we're looking at motor intelligence data for all this. In July, as most rivals cut back on promotions, Nissan's average incentives rose to $4,005 per vehicle. That was up 13.5%, as you said, 14% from a year earlier. For the industry average as a whole, the per vehicle incentive was $3,202. And that actually dropped nearly 10% year over year. Pulling back a little bit, it looks like Nissan's incentive spending has been increasing in the past 4 months. But if you look at it year to date, that's January through July, they are still spending less on incentives, slightly less, about 2.2% from a year ago. And I guess, the interesting question is why? What is happening? I talked to Tiago Castro, who's Nissan's US sales boss, and he said it's two things. One is we ramped up retail sales. Because of that, the number of incentives, the total amount of incentive spending is also increasing. But they're also heavily pushing their US-made vehicles for multiple reasons. The most important being, they're more profitable because they don't face tariffs as opposed to imported cars. But they also keep Nissan's two underutilized factories, at least at some decent capacity. They have two factories, one in Smyrna and Tennessee and Canton, Mississippi. But the thing is that the mix of the U.S. made cars is primarily crossovers, as you can imagine, because that's what sells here. So they build several crossovers and one SUV, the Armada SUV, and they also build a pickup. So these cars, obviously would have higher sticker prices. So those kinds of vehicles consume more incentives. So, for example, this kind of shows how Nissan has kind of prioritized retail sales, which is, more profitable for the dealers. So, for example, in the January through July period, the Nissan brand's retail sales rose 8.8% from a year ago. Meanwhile, the rental fleet volumes plunged 32%. This is kind of an interesting take because Nissan for years has basically lived off fleets, primarily rental fleets, because it was a quick way for them to get volume, but it was destroying the brand because it was affecting residual values. And it was, just sort of cheapening the overall Nissan brand in the mind of consumers as a rental vehicle. So this is kind of an interesting tactic under Christian Monier, who now leads Nissan Americas. They're really trying to get away from this rental fleet image, which really also bothered dealers, their retailers. And so they definitely are seeing some success. So, to sort of show you how they've kind of prioritized U.S. volume or U.S. made volume, the share of U.S. built vehicles in Nissan sales mix rose 10 percentage points to 60%. year to date versus obviously 50% a year ago. So again, that kind of those statistics show what's causing this increase in incentive spending.
Dealerships today face tighter margins, shifting consumer expectations, and affordability pressures tied to broader economic uncertainty. At the same time, consolidation and digital retailing are changing how products are sold and supported. That's why many dealers are re-examining how asset protection fits into long-term profitability and business goals. For more than 60 years, Protective Asset Protection has worked alongside dealerships across the country, delivering trusted F&I solutions like vehicle protection plans, maintenance programs, limited warranties, guaranteed asset protection, and more, helping dealerships generate revenue while helping customers protect what matters most. In addition to protection products, dealers have access to programs, tools, and proven training designed to support a wide range of business models. From digital retailing capabilities to dealer wealth building programs, Protective's approach is centered on partnership, giving dealers the flexibility to explore what fits their operation today and how it may support growth over time. If you're a dealer and interested in tapping new revenue streams through protection products, get in touch. Visit protectiveassetprotection.com/automotive news. That's protectiveassetprotection.com/automotive news.
The results are in from J.D. Power's annual Appeal Survey, which measures how excited car buyers are about their vehicle 90 days after their purchase. One takeaway, customers are not impressed by infotainment systems that are getting too complicated. On this week's episode of the Automotive News Shift podcast, we're joined by Frank Hanley, the Senior Director of Automotive Benchmarking for J.D. Power. Hanley spoke about the factors affecting owner satisfaction and how complicated technology could be turning consumers away from buying a premium vehicle.
The people who are defecting back from the premium brands to the mass market are those people who are doing the income stretch. I don't have as much money to spend. I can get the same content at a lower price, and that's where they're defecting back to mass market.
Meanwhile, consumers prefer EVs over gasoline-powered vehicles in almost every category. But across the industry, automakers struggle to find a balance between making technology useful without overcomplicating things. Join us for Shift, available this Sunday wherever you get your podcasts.
You mentioned the U.S.-made models getting a lot of these. The Rogue alone accounted for more than 40% of Nissan's total incentives outlay in July. Is that sustainable? Like, is that level of support on one nameplate, something that Nissan can keep
so that
doing?
again
Is
is sort
strategy?
of just the way this vehicle is competing right now in the marketplace. It does not have a hybrid version, whereas most of its competitors have hybrid versions. This compact crossover segment is largely hybridized, and the Rogue cannot compete on that front. Now that's going to change later this year when the next generation Rogue arrives with an actual new series hybrid technology, which the company is really banking on. But the reason that the incentives have also been high on Rogue is not only is it the top selling Nissan model, it's also the number one in leases. And so when you lease more, you have an increase in incentive spending. Those typically tend to be more expensive, trying to keep customers in leases. So that, in a sense, is also driving the inordinate spend on the Rogue.
One thing that I hear when high incentive spending is the first question that hits my mind is, how does that affect profitability on these vehicles? Obviously, you've talked about this a little bit already, that kind of tension between moving metal and protecting profitability. What does that picture look like with this strategy?
Yeah, so I kind of asked ago what the per unit profitability impact was. Obviously, they're not going to disclose that. But it seems that Rogue may be a little more under pressure because it's a lower price car. But some of the other vehicles like the Pathfinder, the Armada SUV now, which is also imported from Japan, and the Frontier pickup, these are obviously typically more profitable vehicles. So they're not doing this crazy incentive spend on lower cost sedans. They're doing it on marginally profitable, more profitable vehicles. And again, except for the Armada, they're not paying the tariffs on those vehicles. So they're saving at least 15 to 25% that they would. So definitely it's going to take a hit on profits, but with the whole issue of lease is they've increased sort of the lease penetration, they've increased the focus on lease retention. And that's important because that for the dealers and for the company, that leads to a quicker churn, it leads to a quicker turnaround on the second or third or fourth vehicle. So even though those leases are more expensive, those customers potentially are more valuable down the road because they're not going to sit on that car for 10, 15 years. They're going to buy another Nissan within 2 or 3 years, and then that sort of feeds into the more profitable used car market.
Fascinating stuff, Urvaksh. You can find all of Urvaksh's reporting on this story and everything else. Keep your eyes peeled too, because Urvaksh always graces us with some good scoops when we're, when everyone else is sort of not posting. So, Urvaksh, I always appreciate having you on the show, and this is a really great piece that you've done here. Thanks again.
Thanks, Jake. Have a great weekend.